The most expensive thing inside that luxury boutique was never displayed behind glass. It was the lesson everyone inside was about to learn. On one of Chicago's most fashionable shopping streets, where polished storefront windows reflected afternoon sunlight and luxury vehicles lined the curb, the Maison Laurent boutique welcomed its usual stream of affluent customers. Crystal chandeliers bathed every display in warm light, soft classical music drifted through the spacious showroom, and carefully arranged handbags, dresses, and accessories rested like priceless works of art beneath elegant spotlights. Every detail whispered exclusivity. Every smile carried the confidence that came from serving clients who rarely asked about prices. Then Margaret Hayes quietly stepped through the front door. At 36, Maggie looked like someone enjoying a peaceful afternoon rather than someone preparing to make one of the largest purchases the boutique had ever seen. She wore a cream-colored sweater, faded blue jeans, clean white sneakers, and carried a simple canvas tote over one shoulder. Her light brown hair rested loosely behind her shoulders, and she wore almost no jewelry beyond a modest silver watch. She paused just inside the entrance, taking a slow look around the boutique with genuine appreciation. Her eyes lingered on the craftsmanship of a hand-stitched leather handbag before moving toward a collection of elegant evening dresses displayed beneath soft golden lighting. She smiled quietly, almost as though admiring pieces inside an art gallery. No employee approached her. Across the showroom, 3 sales associates warmly greeted a couple dressed in designer clothing. Another consultant hurried to offer sparkling water to a woman carrying an expensive handbag recognized by nearly everyone in luxury fashion. Maggie remained standing alone. Several customers glanced toward her before quickly returning to their own shopping. One associate noticed her but simply assumed she was browsing without any intention of making a purchase. At the center of the boutique, store manager Olivia Brooks observed everything with practiced attention. Years of working in luxury retail had taught her to identify serious buyers within seconds, or so she believed. Her eyes settled briefly on Maggie's casual clothing before moving away without another thought. In Olivia's experience, clients interested in the limited collection usually arrived with personal stylists, scheduled appointments, or at least looked the part. Maggie quietly walked toward a display featuring the boutique's newest seasonal collection. She admired the elegant tailoring, gently reading the small descriptions beside each design without touching the garments. Her expression reflected sincere appreciation rather than envy. She noticed the careful stitching, the delicate fabrics, and the remarkable attention to detail that few shoppers ever stopped to examine. A younger sales associate watched her from across the room before leaning toward a coworker with a faint smile. "She has been looking at that display for 5 minutes," the associate whispered. "She probably just wants pictures." The coworker shrugged. "Olivia will handle it if she asks about the limited collection." Maggie never heard the conversation. Or perhaps she did and simply chose not to acknowledge it. She continued walking through the boutique with calm confidence, appreciating every display exactly the same way she might admire paintings inside a museum. There was nothing hurried about her movements and nothing uncertain in her posture. She belonged perfectly comfortably wherever she decided to stand. Yet almost everyone around her had already reached the same conclusion before she had spoken a single word. They believed they knew exactly who she was, exactly what she could afford, and exactly how her visit would end. None of them realized they were only minutes away from discovering that true luxury has never been measured by the clothes a person wears, but by the character they carry when everyone else chooses to look away. Margaret Hayes slowly continued through the boutique, pausing in front of each carefully arranged display with genuine admiration rather than excitement. She examined the elegant craftsmanship from a respectful distance, reading the small descriptions beneath each design while soft piano music drifted through the showroom. Every garment reflected remarkable attention to detail, from hand-finished embroidery to carefully selected fabrics imported from Europe. Maggie appreciated those details because she understood the work behind exceptional craftsmanship. To her, beautiful design deserved quiet respect regardless of its price. She eventually stopped before a graceful midnight blue evening dress displayed beneath a crystal spotlight. A small card beside it identified the piece as part of the boutique's newest limited collection, available only through personal consultation. Maggie smiled warmly. The dress immediately reminded her of her younger sister, Emily, whose charity gala would take place the following month. Emily had spent years organizing educational programs for children across underserved communities, and Maggie wanted to surprise her with something elegant for the special evening. She looked around, expecting that someone would eventually offer assistance. Several sales associates walked past without acknowledging her presence. One greeted another customer carrying several luxury shopping bags. Another carefully adjusted a display only a few feet away before quietly walking toward clients dressed in designer clothing. Maggie waited patiently without showing the slightest frustration. She had learned long ago that kindness often revealed more about a person's character than impatience ever could. Across the showroom, Olivia Brooks continued observing the boutique with practiced attention. She noticed Maggie still standing near the limited collection and quietly walked toward one of her associates. "Has anyone assisted her yet?" Olivia asked. The younger employee shook her head. "No. I thought she was only browsing." Olivia glanced briefly toward Maggie before lowering her voice. "Focus on the appointment clients first. We have serious buyers arriving within the hour." The associate nodded and immediately returned to another customer. Maggie remained alone. A well-dressed couple approached the same display and immediately received warm greetings from two consultants. Samples were presented. Fabric swatches appeared. Complimentary beverages were offered with polished smiles. Maggie simply stepped aside to give them room, still wearing the same calm expression. She admired how beautifully the consultants described the collection and quietly listened as they explained the inspiration behind each design. When the couple moved on, Maggie gently raised her hand toward a nearby associate. "Excuse me," she said kindly. "May I ask a question about the evening collection?" The associate hesitated before offering a polite but distracted smile. "Someone will be with you shortly." Several minutes passed. No one came. More customers entered. More greetings echoed through the boutique. Maggie continued waiting without complaint, occasionally looking toward the elegant blue dress that had first caught her attention. A few nearby shoppers noticed she had been standing there for quite some time. Some exchanged quiet glances but said nothing. Olivia finally decided to approach. From a distance, she had already formed a complete opinion based solely on Maggie's casual clothing and simple canvas tote. As she crossed the polished marble floor with confident steps, several employees subtly watched the interaction they expected to unfold. Maggie turned with a warm smile as Olivia arrived beside her. She believed she was finally about to receive the same courteous service every guest deserved. She had no idea that the next few minutes would quietly expose the difference between selling luxury products and understanding true elegance. Olivia Brooks stopped a comfortable distance from Margaret Hayes and offered a polished smile that looked professional from across the room but carried very little warmth up close. "Good afternoon," she said smoothly. "May I help you?" Maggie returned the smile with genuine kindness. "Yes, thank you. I was hoping to learn more about the evening collection. The blue dress is absolutely beautiful." Olivia glanced briefly toward the display before looking back at Maggie's sweater, jeans, white sneakers, and simple canvas tote. In only a few seconds, she quietly reached a conclusion she believed years of experience had taught her to trust. "The pieces in this collection are available through private consultation," Olivia explained. "They are reserved for our appointment clients." Maggie nodded politely. "I understand. I only wanted to ask about the craftsmanship and perhaps see one of the dresses a little closer." Olivia maintained the same pleasant expression, but her tone became noticeably firmer. "The collection is extremely exclusive. Most guests schedule appointments well in advance before viewing these designs." Maggie continued speaking with complete courtesy. "If possible, I would simply like to know more about this particular piece. I am looking for something very special for my younger sister." Olivia folded her hands neatly in front of her. "Perhaps our seasonal collection near the entrance would be more appropriate. We have several beautiful options at different price points." The sentence sounded polite, yet everyone nearby understood exactly what it implied. Maggie looked toward the entrance where more affordable displays stood beneath smaller lighting fixtures. She slowly returned her attention to Olivia without losing her calm smile. "I appreciate the suggestion," she replied gently. "But I came here because I admired this collection." Two nearby customers quietly glanced toward the conversation. One woman raised an eyebrow before continuing to examine a handbag. Another customer exchanged an amused smile with his companion. A younger sales associate standing behind the register lowered her eyes, clearly uncomfortable with the direction the conversation was taking. Olivia continued with carefully measured professionalism. "The artisans who create these pieces work with extremely rare materials, and every garment is produced in very limited quantities. We simply try to ensure that viewing appointments are reserved for clients prepared to purchase." Maggie listened without interruption. "That makes perfect sense," she answered softly. "I was hoping to become one of those clients today." For the first time, Olivia allowed a faint smile of disbelief to appear. "Of course," she replied. "However, these individual pieces begin well above $20,000, and several exceed $50,000. Her words hung gently in the quiet showroom. The nearby shoppers heard every number. Maggie simply nodded as though discussing ordinary details. "Thank you for explaining that." Olivia waited, expecting the conversation to end. Instead, Maggie calmly looked once more toward the elegant blue dress before asking another question. "Would it be possible to see the entire limited collection together?" The boutique seemed to grow even quieter. One associate briefly stopped arranging scarves. Another customer slowly turned toward them with open curiosity. Olivia looked at Maggie for several long seconds before answering with practiced composure. "The complete collection is presented only during private appointments for qualified clients." Maggie's expression never changed. She simply smiled with the same quiet grace she had carried since entering the boutique. Around her, nearly everyone believed the conversation had already reached its inevitable conclusion. None of them realized that the most important question of the afternoon had not yet been asked, and when it finally was, every confident assumption inside the boutique would begin to quietly fall apart. Margaret Hayes looked once more at the elegant blue dress before turning back toward Olivia Brooks with the same calm expression she had carried since entering the boutique. There was no frustration in her eyes and no trace of embarrassment in her posture. She simply asked another question, quietly enough that only the nearby customers should have heard it. "May I ask something?" Olivia nodded politely. "Of course." Maggie smiled. "If someone wished to purchase every piece in the limited collection today, would that still require a private appointment?" For a heartbeat, the boutique became completely still. Then a soft laugh escaped from one customer standing only a few feet away. Another customer smiled into a cup of sparkling water before looking toward the display with amused curiosity. Olivia maintained her professional posture, but the faint smile at the corner of her mouth revealed what she was thinking. "The complete collection," she repeated. "Yes," Maggie answered pleasantly. "Every piece." Olivia folded her hands together once again. "The entire collection represents one of the most exclusive releases our boutique has ever received. It includes handcrafted evening gowns, tailored jackets, limited edition handbags, and custom accessories. The value exceeds several $100,000. Maggie nodded gently. "Thank you for explaining." Olivia continued, her voice carefully measured. "Our collectors usually arrange purchases like that weeks in advance. Those transactions involve dedicated consultations and personalized service." Maggie looked around the elegant showroom, admiring the displays one more time before asking, "So it could be purchased?" Olivia hesitated for only a moment. "In theory, yes. But that situation is extremely rare." The younger sales associate behind the nearby counter quietly looked toward Maggie with growing curiosity. Something about the woman's composure no longer matched the assumptions everyone had made only minutes earlier. Most people who felt uncomfortable would have apologized and walked away by now. Maggie had done neither. She remained remarkably relaxed, as though every answer she received simply confirmed something she already knew. One of the boutique's longtime clients slowly approached another display nearby, pretending to examine handbags while listening carefully to the conversation. Even the soft piano music now seemed distant beneath the growing silence. Olivia finally gestured politely toward the entrance again. "If you are searching for a thoughtful gift, I truly believe our signature collection would offer many beautiful choices." Maggie smiled warmly. "I appreciate your recommendation." She paused for a brief moment before adding, "However, I have always believed that if something is created with exceptional care, it deserves to be appreciated exactly as its designers intended." Olivia blinked with mild surprise. Those words sounded less like casual admiration and more like someone who genuinely understood luxury craftsmanship. Maggie continued, her voice calm and sincere. "I admire the tailoring, the hand finishing, and the way every design seems connected to the others. It feels less like separate pieces and more like one complete artistic vision." The younger associate quietly lowered the tablet she had been holding. Olivia herself glanced briefly toward the collection before returning her attention to Maggie. For the first time, uncertainty crossed her expression. Before she could respond, Maggie reached into her simple canvas tote and removed her phone with unhurried confidence. She looked at the display one final time before softly asking, "Would you mind preparing the complete collection for purchase while I confirm one small detail?" No one answered immediately. The smiles that had quietly surrounded the conversation only moments earlier began to fade. Somewhere in the boutique, a shopping bag rustled softly as every eye turned toward the woman they had dismissed from the moment she walked through the door. Margaret Hayes held the phone comfortably in one hand, her expression as peaceful as it had been from the moment she entered the boutique. She did not rush to make a call or speak dramatically. Instead, she opened a secure application, reviewed a few details on the screen, and quietly confirmed several numbers before smiling to herself. Olivia Brooks watched with folded hands, still convinced she was witnessing someone attempting to save face after an awkward conversation. Around them, the boutique had grown noticeably quieter. Several customers who had been browsing moments earlier now lingered nearby, pretending to admire handbags and evening gowns while discreetly listening. The younger sales associate continued watching Maggie with growing curiosity. Something about the woman's calm confidence no longer matched the assumptions everyone had formed when she first walked through the front door. Maggie finally looked up from her phone. "Thank you for your patience," she said warmly. "I simply needed to verify that the transfer limit for today's purchase remained unchanged." Olivia offered a polite smile that barely concealed her disbelief. "Of course," she replied. "Large purchases often require financial verification." Maggie nodded. "That is exactly why I wanted to confirm before asking your team to prepare everything." Olivia glanced briefly toward the limited collection before answering carefully. "Preparing every piece would require considerable time. We normally begin only after payment has been approved." Maggie smiled. "That sounds perfectly reasonable." Without another word, she touched the screen of her phone and initiated a call. After only a few seconds, someone answered. Maggie's voice remained calm and professional. "Good afternoon. This is Margaret Hayes. I would like to authorize a luxury retail purchase through my private account. The estimated amount will likely exceed $700,000. Yes, I will remain available while the boutique completes verification." She listened quietly for several moments before thanking the representative and ending the call. No one in the boutique spoke. Olivia maintained her professional posture, but a small crease appeared between her eyebrows. The younger associate exchanged uncertain glances with another employee. One customer slowly lowered the designer handbag she had been examining. Maggie placed the phone back inside her canvas tote as though nothing unusual had happened. "Your payment department should receive confirmation shortly," she said politely. Olivia answered with measured composure. "Very well. If you wish, we can begin the verification process." Maggie nodded. "Please do." Olivia signaled another associate to bring the portable payment terminal while she contacted the boutique's financial office. The associate hurried away without the casual confidence she had displayed earlier. Within moments, the office telephone behind the service counter began ringing. Then another line rang almost immediately afterward. Employees quietly answered one call after another, their expressions gradually shifting from routine professionalism to visible surprise. Olivia accepted one of the calls herself. As she listened, her expression slowly changed. She asked several careful questions, glanced toward Maggie, then looked again at the display containing the limited collection. The confidence that had guided every decision she made that afternoon quietly began to disappear. Around the boutique, conversations faded into complete silence. Customers who had smiled only minutes earlier now watched without saying a word. Maggie simply stood beside the display with gentle patience, admiring the elegant craftsmanship exactly as she had when she first arrived. She showed no excitement, no satisfaction, and no desire to prove anyone wrong. She simply waited while the truth arrived on its own, one quiet confirmation at a time. The telephone call ended, but its effect continued echoing through the boutique long after the line went silent. Olivia Brooks remained standing behind the service counter with the receiver still resting lightly in her hand. She looked toward Margaret Hayes once more, yet this time the confident certainty that had guided her earlier decisions had completely disappeared. The financial representative had verified every detail without hesitation. The private account was genuine. The purchasing authorization had already been approved. Most surprisingly of all, the representative had politely informed the boutique that the requested amount represented only a small portion of the available purchasing limit. Olivia slowly placed the receiver back onto its cradle. One of the sales associates approached carefully. "Is everything all right?" she asked in a quiet voice. Olivia answered almost automatically. "Please prepare the complete limited collection." The associate blinked in surprise. "Every piece?" Olivia nodded. "Every piece." For several seconds, no one moved. Then the boutique came alive in an entirely different way than before. Garment bags were carefully unfolded. Display cases were unlocked. White gloves were brought out as employees gently removed evening gowns, tailored jackets, handcrafted handbags, and matching accessories from their elegant presentations. Every item that had been described as reserved for exclusive clients was now being prepared for the woman who had spent nearly half an hour standing quietly without anyone offering proper assistance. The younger sales associate approached Maggie with genuine warmth. "Would you like to enjoy some coffee or sparkling water while we prepare everything?" Maggie smiled kindly. "Thank you. Water would be wonderful." Her answer carried exactly the same gentle tone she had used since arriving. She neither mentioned the earlier delay nor referred to the conversation that had unfolded only minutes before. Around the boutique, customers watched the remarkable transformation in complete silence. The same employees who had overlooked Maggie now moved with extraordinary care, inspecting each garment under soft lighting before placing it inside elegant protective covers. One customer quietly leaned toward another. "I cannot believe she is actually purchasing everything." The reply came almost as a whisper. "Neither can I." Olivia walked back toward Maggie with noticeably slower steps. Her professional smile remained, but it now reflected humility instead of assumption. "Ms. Hayes," she said respectfully, "our financial office has completed the verification. Everything is ready whenever you are." Maggie nodded graciously. "Thank you. I appreciate your team's efforts." Olivia hesitated before speaking again. "Would you prefer each item packaged individually, or would you like coordinated presentation boxes?" Maggie considered the question for a moment. "Please package everything carefully. Every designer deserves to have their work protected." The answer caught several employees by surprise. Most collectors spoke about exclusivity or investment value. Maggie spoke only about respecting the craftsmanship itself. The final authorization appeared on the payment terminal moments later. Maggie reviewed the amount without the slightest sign of concern before completing the purchase with calm confidence. A soft confirmation tone sounded through the boutique. It was a simple electronic sound, Yet in that quiet showroom it seemed louder than any conversation that had taken place all afternoon. No applause followed. No dramatic announcement was made. There was only silence. The same silence that had begun with judgment had now become something entirely different. It had become respect. As the employees carefully continued preparing every piece from the collection, everyone inside the boutique understood that true wealth had never announced itself when it entered the room. It had simply waited with patience until character revealed the difference between appearance and reality. The final receipt printed quietly from the payment terminal, its soft mechanical sound drawing every eye in the boutique toward the counter. One by one, elegant garment bags were arranged across the polished display table until the entire limited collection stood carefully prepared for delivery. Evening gowns rested beside handcrafted handbags, tailored jackets, silk scarves, and custom accessories, each protected with remarkable care. Only an hour earlier, those same pieces had been described as available only to a select few. Now every item belonged to Margaret Hayes. No one spoke. Even the classical music drifting through the boutique seemed almost distant beneath the weight of the silence. Olivia Brooks watched her team complete the final packaging with slow, deliberate movements. Earlier that afternoon, she had believed experience allowed her to recognize serious clients at a glance. Standing there now, she realized how easily confidence could become prejudice when appearances replaced curiosity. The younger sales associate carefully carried the final presentation box toward Maggie. "Everything has been prepared exactly as requested, Ms. Hayes," she said with sincere respect. Maggie smiled warmly. "Thank you. You handled every piece beautifully." The compliment surprised the associate. She had expected criticism after everything that had happened. Instead, she received kindness. Nearby customers quietly observed the exchange. The woman who had laughed softly when Maggie first mentioned purchasing the collection now lowered her eyes. Another gentleman removed his glasses and simply stared at the beautifully arranged packages without saying a word. The atmosphere inside the boutique had changed completely. Nobody seemed interested in prices anymore. Everyone was thinking about first impressions. Olivia slowly approached Maggie once again. Her professional posture remained, but there was now unmistakable humility in every movement. "Ms. Hayes," she began carefully, "I would like to personally thank you for your patience today." Maggie met her eyes with the same gentle expression she had carried since arriving. "You are welcome." Olivia glanced briefly toward the collection before continuing. "I realize now that we should have welcomed you very differently." Maggie remained silent, allowing Olivia to finish without interruption. "Luxury should never begin with assumptions," Olivia admitted quietly. "Today reminded me of that." Maggie gave a small nod. Every customer hopes to feel respected before they decide whether to make a purchase. The sentence was simple, yet everyone standing nearby heard it clearly. No accusation followed. No anger appeared. The words carried more weight precisely because they were spoken with compassion rather than resentment. One of the longtime clients quietly looked toward Maggie before saying to no one in particular, "That might be the most valuable lesson anyone has learned in this boutique." Several employees lowered their eyes in thoughtful agreement. The younger associate carefully adjusted the ribbon on one of the presentation boxes before asking, "Would you like assistance carrying everything to your vehicle?" Maggie smiled. "That would be appreciated. Thank you." As employees carefully gathered the elegant packages, they handled each one with extraordinary attention. Yet many of them found themselves watching Maggie instead of the collection. Her calm dignity had become more memorable than any designer label displayed throughout the showroom. She had never demanded respect. She had simply continued offering it, even after receiving very little in return. As the final presentation box was lifted from the display table, the boutique felt strangely different than it had only a short time before. The expensive fabrics, polished marble floors, and crystal chandeliers remained exactly the same. The people inside, however, no longer saw them as the most impressive part of the room. Without raising her voice or reminding anyone of their mistake, one quiet woman had transformed an afternoon of judgment into an unforgettable lesson about character, and the silence that followed carried more respect than words ever could. The last presentation box was secured with a satin ribbon just as the boutique's front doors opened once again. A distinguished gentleman in a tailored navy suit stepped inside, accompanied by a single assistant who remained respectfully behind him. Conversations that had only begun returning to normal faded almost instantly as Olivia Brooks recognized him. It was Charles Laurent, the founder and owner of Maison Laurent, a man whose visits were rare enough that employees often spoke about them for weeks afterward. Olivia immediately walked forward to greet him, but before she could speak, his attention had already shifted across the showroom. His eyes settled on Margaret Hayes standing quietly beside the completed collection. A warm smile crossed his face. "Miss Hayes," he said as he approached, extending his hand. "It has been far too long." The boutique fell completely silent. Olivia stopped where she stood, unable to hide her surprise. Maggie returned the handshake with genuine warmth. "It is wonderful to see you again, Charles." The owner glanced toward the beautifully packaged collection before looking back at Maggie. "I heard from our financial office only a few minutes ago. They told me someone wished to purchase the entire release. I hoped it was you." Maggie smiled softly. "Your designers created something remarkable this season. Their work deserves to be appreciated." Charles nodded with visible gratitude. "They will be honored to hear that." He then noticed the unusual atmosphere surrounding the employees and customers. The silence carried questions that no one seemed willing to ask aloud. Looking toward Olivia, he said gently, "Has everything gone smoothly today?" Olivia hesitated. For the first time in many years, she found herself struggling to answer a simple question. "Ms. Hayes was very patient with us," she admitted quietly. Charles studied her expression before glancing toward Maggie, who offered only a calm smile and no complaint whatsoever. He understood enough without anyone explaining further. Turning back toward Olivia, he spoke with kindness rather than disappointment. "We spend years selecting the finest materials in the world," he said. "But none of those materials matter if respect is missing the moment someone walks through our doors." Every employee listened without moving. His voice never became harsh, yet every word settled deeply into the room. "Luxury is not created by chandeliers or marble floors," Charles continued. "It begins with the way we greet a person before we know anything about them." Olivia lowered her eyes. "You are right," she answered sincerely. "I forgot that today." Charles nodded once. "The important thing is remembering it tomorrow." Maggie quietly stepped forward. "Everyone has difficult days," she said gently. "What matters is whether we learn from them." Olivia looked up, visibly surprised by the generosity in Maggie's response. She had expected criticism, perhaps even humiliation. Instead, she received understanding. Several employees exchanged thoughtful glances. The younger sales associate smiled faintly, inspired not by the extraordinary purchase but by the extraordinary grace standing before her. Charles turned back toward Maggie. "May I ask one question?" Maggie nodded. "Of course. What inspired you to purchase the entire collection?" Maggie looked toward the elegant presentation boxes before answering. "Beautiful craftsmanship deserves people who believe in it. I simply wanted every piece to find a future where it would be appreciated." Once again, silence filled the boutique. This time, however, it carried admiration instead of judgment. In that quiet room, surrounded by extraordinary luxury, everyone finally understood that the greatest elegance they had witnessed all afternoon had never been displayed on a mannequin. It had been quietly standing among them from the very beginning. Charles Laurent personally walked Margaret Hayes toward the boutique entrance while several employees carefully carried the elegant presentation boxes behind them. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows, casting warm reflections across the polished marble floor that had witnessed so many assumptions only a few hours earlier. Customers quietly stepped aside, creating a respectful path without anyone asking them to move. The atmosphere no longer felt like an exclusive boutique serving privileged clients. It felt like a place where everyone had just shared an unforgettable lesson. Before reaching the door, Maggie paused beside the collection and turned toward Charles with a thoughtful smile. "I would like to make one small change," she said gently. Charles nodded. "Anything you wish." Maggie rested her hand lightly on one of the presentation boxes. "Please deliver the blue evening dress directly to my sister. It is the reason I came here today." She then looked across the remaining collection. Several of the other pieces can be donated to the charity gala she organizes next month. The auction raises scholarships for students who would never otherwise have opportunities like that. Charles smiled with genuine admiration. "Your generosity honors every designer who created these pieces." Maggie answered softly, "Beautiful things become even more meaningful when they create opportunities for someone else." Olivia Brooks stood quietly nearby, listening to every word. Earlier that afternoon, she had believed luxury meant exclusivity. Now she realized that true elegance revealed itself through generosity, humility, and respect. She stepped forward with quiet sincerity. "Ms. Hayes," she said, "thank you for giving us the chance to learn instead of leaving disappointed." Maggie smiled warmly. "People remember kindness much longer than mistakes." Olivia nodded, her eyes reflecting gratitude rather than embarrassment. "I promise every guest who walks through these doors from now on will receive the welcome they deserve." Maggie extended her hand, and Olivia accepted it with both of hers. The handshake lasted only a moment, but everyone watching understood its meaning. No victory had been celebrated. No humiliation had been returned. Respect had simply replaced judgment. As the presentation boxes were carefully loaded into the waiting vehicle, the younger sales associate approached Maggie with a quiet smile. "I hope I become the kind of professional who notices people before I notice appearances." Maggie looked at her kindly. "You already took the first step by wanting to improve." The young woman smiled with renewed confidence. Charles opened the vehicle door for Maggie himself. Before stepping inside, she glanced once more at the boutique that had changed so much in a single afternoon. The crystal chandeliers still sparkled. The elegant displays remained exactly where they had always been. Yet something far more important had changed inside those walls. Every employee now understood that respect should never depend on clothing, reputation, or visible wealth. It should be offered freely from the very first greeting. The vehicle quietly pulled away, disappearing into the steady rhythm of downtown Chicago. Inside the boutique, customers slowly returned to browsing, but the conversations were different now. They spoke less about prices and more about character. Olivia welcomed each new guest with genuine warmth, never again allowing appearances to decide who deserved her attention. Long after the limited collection had found its new home, the story of that quiet afternoon continued to be shared among employees, designers, and loyal clients alike. They remembered neither the total purchase nor the exclusive garments as clearly as they remembered the woman who entered wearing simple clothes and left behind something infinitely more valuable than luxury. And on that day, everyone discovered that the finest thing anyone can ever wear is the quiet dignity that never changes, no matter who is watching.